Hello, and welcome to Safe Sport Expectations. This 15-minute webinar is aimed at athletes and coaches, but it also is applicable to anyone in sport. It's been developed as part of Ottawa's Safe Sport Toolkit, which is a resource to help you learn more about how to ensure safe and welcoming environments in your sport. I'm LJ Bartle from Sport Law, and I've been working with the Ottawa Sport Council and its community sport organizations for the past year to develop its toolkit. Please note, it is possible that something in this webinar may trigger an emotional response, whether or not you've experienced maltreatment. You may want to complete this webinar in a comfortable place and/or participate with a supportive friend or family member. If you ever need to speak with someone, you can get immediate support from the Canadian Sport Hotline, Kids Help Phone, or the Canadian Centre for Mental Health and Sport. As you can see from our agenda, we'll be covering the following topics: our hope for you, the new normal, and expectations, which all focus on helping you understand the expectations that are in place for athletes and coaches as they relate to safe sport. Sport Law has worked with all levels of sport organizations in Canada on issues such as safe sport for 30 years. Our hope for you is to participate in a safe and welcoming environment that encourages self-esteem, mutual respect, healthy communities, and fair play. A little background for you: the Ottawa Sport Council and its sport organizations spent much of 2021 working together to come to consensus on Ottawa's safe sport goal, a collaborative and harmonious approach to fostering safe, welcoming, and inclusive sport environments collectively, and that informed the toolkit. We want to ensure that we're all on the same page when we talk about safe sport. Safe sport can be defined as physical and emotional safety, which includes concussion and injury prevention, and environments free from bullying, abuse, harassment, discrimination, and other forms of maltreatment. And of course, you cannot have safe sport without equity, diversity, and inclusion. You may be wondering why we're talking about this. This is the new normal. We're in a time of change. Things that may have been accepted in the past may no longer be accepted. This webinar is designed to help you understand what's expected of you. Ultimately, we want you to read and abide by your sports code of conduct, and we want you to understand that the code applies to everyone. These expectations are not just for coaches and athletes. They're for parents, officials, sport administrators, team trainers, other support staff, volunteers, and spectators. It applies to everyone. We want to ensure that everyone feels comfortable speaking up if things that are happening don't seem right. Former Olympian Alison Forsyth asked athletes to think about this. What are those things that are normalized in your sport that would never be accepted elsewhere? She wants you to think about school or work. What would never happen there that might happen in your sport? Something like hazing or other negative behaviors. Often, athletes are in a vulnerable position. They want to make the team. And then once they make the team, they don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize that. It needs to be safe to speak up. Everyone needs to play a role in providing that safe environment. So don't be afraid to speak up. And if someone speaks up to you, please listen and take action. Challenge the status quo. So what are the expectations? We want to be very clear. Old school coaching is no longer acceptable. All these behaviors that are connected to old school coaching are no longer acceptable. Verbal abuse, physical abuse, neglect, humiliation, discrimination, body shaming, military-style approaches, negative feedback, win-at-all-costs mentality. toxic environments. This is what is expected in coaching. Being a role model and setting a high standard of behavior. Working with athletes to co-create a safe and welcoming environment. Living up to commitments. Expecting athletes to live up to their commitments. Respectfully providing feedback to athletes about technical skills and behavior. Implementing reasonable consequences for athlete behavior that align with the athlete code of conduct. Communicating regularly with all athletes about expectations. And being consistent and transparent about playing time and reasons that athletes may not be competing. We want to ensure that you understand harassment. This is how you test whether or not something you say or do could be considered harassment. It doesn't matter whether a person intended to offend someone. The test is whether they knew or should have reasonably known that their comments or conduct were unwelcome. Some examples of harassment: persistent, unwelcome comments, jokes, or taunts. Written or verbal abuse, threats, or outbursts. Racial slurs, practical jokes which endanger a person's safety or negatively affect performance. Unwanted physical contact, such as touching or pinching. Purposely excluding or socially isolating a person from a group or team. And hazing. An example of hazing could be when a rookie is expected to do something humiliating, abusive, or dangerous in order to be accepted as part of the team. Here are some examples of sexual harassment: persistent, unwelcome contact or touching, sexist jokes, offering a benefit in exchange for a sexual favor, demanding hugs, comments about a person's sex life, sexually degrading comments about a person, displaying or sharing sexually offensive material, bragging about sexual ability. Again, please remember, it doesn't matter whether a person intended to offend someone. It's whether they knew or should have known that their comments or conduct were unwelcome. We want to be sure you understand sexual consent in Canada. So, what's the age of consent? It's 16 years old in Canada. However, individuals under 18 years old cannot consent to sex when the other party is in a position of trust or authority. So a person of authority is where there is a power imbalance. Someone has more power over another, such as a coach with an athlete or a boss with an employee. Anyone under 18 years of age cannot legally consent to sex with a person of authority. So that takes us to relationships. You must follow the law, plus there are other expectations. No dating between any persons of authority, such as a coach, and their athletes of any age. If a relationship begins between an adult coach and an adult athlete, the coach must report it and then no longer coach that athlete. There needs to be honesty, transparency, which means everyone knows and there are no secrets. One of the reasons there are strict expectations around dating is because of grooming. A groomer is a trusted adult who builds a level of comfort in order to take advantage of someone. A groomer often pretends to be a victim in order to gain sympathy and trust from someone else. A groomer is consciously manipulating someone's emotions for their own benefit. Some examples of grooming is that a groomer always has a sad story and wants others to feel badly for them. A groomer often tells someone that they are their favorite to make them feel special. Someone who's manipulated by a groomer sees whatever they're doing as necessary to help the groomer, even if it's sexual in nature. We want you to be aware of this because sometimes it's hard to tell whether or not someone is being manipulative. It's not black and white, it's gray, which is confusing and can make it difficult to determine who means well and who does not. Here are some common things that happen with groomers. It's all about the gray area for groomers. Groomers push physical and emotional boundaries further and further until inappropriate behavior, like taking a shower together, seems normal. A groomer puts their own needs above those of athletes in their care. A groomer goes to their athletes to have their needs met. Some other examples of pushing boundaries are when persons of authority start giving gifts to their athletes, start having intimate conversations or intimate contact. If something doesn't feel right, speak up. If a person of authority needs help, they should be asking someone who is not under their control. The bottom line, it is not the athlete's responsibility to take care of the coach. The Rule of Two was created by the Coaching Association of Canada to ensure all interactions between athletes and coaches are open, observable, and justifiable. That means others can see you in public spaces with other people or with open doors or public viewing areas. The Rule of Two is for the protection of both the coach and the athlete. This infographic, which is available on coach.ca, has a lot of information on it, but I want to draw your attention to the green and yellow boxes which outline leading practices for maintaining Rule of Two. The best situation is where the green box is. There are 2 trained and screened coaches with 1 athlete, but that isn't always possible. So the next best thing is 1 trained coach and another screened adult with an athlete, or 1 coach and at least 2 athletes. It should never be 1 coach and 1 athlete in a private environment. This also applies online. If the Rule of Two is not possible for some reason, here are some options. There needs to be communication about any possible alone time between a coach and an athlete. Parents and/or others need to be aware or involved, and there needs to be a clear reason for being alone. If you're going to be alone, a parent and the coach's superior must give written permission. And even with permission, there should be limited time alone. Finally, there needs to be a reporting protocol so that if a situation arises where you end up being alone, which can happen through no fault of the coach or athlete, it must be reported to the sport that you were alone and the reason for being alone. This should be done by both the coach and the athlete. Again, this is all for the protection of both the coach and the athlete. As mentioned earlier, the Rule of Two also applies to communication, including in online environments. So there should be group chat for coach-athlete discussions, keep discussions only related to sport issues, no discussions or pictures about drugs, alcohol, or sexual activity, no posting of any disrespectful, hateful, and other negative comments, photos, or videos on social media. It's helpful for both the athlete and the coach to keep a record of your conversations, especially if they were just between the two of you, just in case there's a misunderstanding, you have a record of what was said. Finally, when in doubt, just treat each other well. Behave with the highest standards of respect and integrity. Avoid public criticism of anyone connected to your sport. Demonstrate sportsmanship, leadership, and ethical conduct. Be fair and reasonable. Follow the rules and the spirit of the rules. If you want more information about safe sport, the Ottawa Safe Sport Toolkit has a number of customized resources that Ottawa sport organizations can use. In particular, you may want to check out the Safe Sport Tips for athletes and Safe Sport Tips for coaches to help clarify what's okay and not okay, especially around the rule of two. In general, there are a lot of great resources and leading practices in Canada, so you can learn more about safe sport. Hope you feel more informed after this webinar. If you have any questions or concerns about safe sport, our contact information is available. Thank you for your attention.